So today I'm going to be making massa, which is a Portuguese sweetbread. It's a traditional sweetbread that my mother used to make while we were growing up. So this recipe is pretty near and dear to my heart, and it took me several tries. The reason being is that my mother never wrote down a complete recipe. So I have all of these scraps of paper with partial recipes written on it that I had to combine and experiment to get to this recipe right here. So when my mom would make masa, she would make so many breads. She'd be cooking for the whole family for days, and she used to do it in a big bucket and knead it with my grandmother or her sisters, and I used to help them in the kitchen. So I'm going to show you guys how to make that today. So I'm going to start by measuring out using a soup spoon, what she would call a tablespoon of all-purpose flour. I put it on a scale here so we can get a little bit more accurate, and we also have a teaspoon of sugar. I'm going to add that to a bowl. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon, which is a soup spoon. So I put it on the scale. You're going to see about 10 grams of active yeast, active dry yeast. I'm just going to pour that into the flour. I'm going to measure out 125 mils of warm water. I would keep it between 100 and 110 degrees. I use an instant thermometer to measure the temperature. I'm going to add that to the flour, the sugar, and the yeast, and I'm going to just dissolve everything. And I'll be setting that aside to let it activate. I'm now going to measure out 1 1/4 cup of milk, 125 grams of unsalted butter, and I'm going to melt them in my microwave just until the butter is melted. So we're going to warm this. We're not going to boil it or heat it, just warm it up. Just a tip, you should pull out your eggs in advance because we should be using room temperature eggs. If you don't have room temperature eggs on hand, you can just fill a bowl with warm water and let the eggs sit in there for a few minutes. I'm now going to measure out 1 1/4 cups of sugar. We're going to crack those 4 room temperature eggs into a bowl. We're going to use the zest of half of a lemon. We're going to use a teaspoon. So I measure it out for accuracy because it's not the same as it was in the old days. Make it a little easier to stay accurate. So I'm just going to mix it together a little bit in the measuring cup so it combines a little easier. I'm going to add the eggs into the stand mixer along with the sugar, lemon zest, and salt. I'm going to place the whisk attachment on the stand mixer, and I'm going to whisk those together until light and creamy or emulsified. About 2 minutes. So I have a proof feature on my oven, which I love to use, but if you don't have that, you need to find a draft-free, warm part of your home, and you will cover the dough with a towel and let it stay warm and rise. So you can see it's all melted together. You're going to pour the milk and the butter into the eggs and the sugar. And we're gonna whisk that together for another minute. So you can see the yeast is active and bubbling. We're going to pour that in to the stand mixer. And we're just going to whisk that until it's all combined. So I just take a spoon and I kind of aerate the flour so it's nice and light. And I'm going to measure out 6 cups of all-purpose flour. And I put it on a scale just for accuracy. It's going to be 900 grams. This recipe is going to give me 2 large masa cakes or breads. Just going to change the whisk attachment to the dough hook, and I'm going to pour all of the flour in at once. Just going to do it slowly so I don't make a mess. Still make a mess. And I'm gonna turn it on to low speed and until the flour is a little better incorporated, and then I'll turn up the speed to medium and mix that for about 5 minutes. So this is a really interesting dough, and I think I was having a hard time at first because I had been more experienced with making bread dough. This dough needs to be runny. I would say that it's a mix between a cake batter and a bread dough. So it will be very challenging to handle. And I got that wrong a lot. And my masa was turning out really heavy and dense. And I was so confused as to why. So I'm just gonna show you the dough fall off the dough hook and the way that it feels when I touch it with my fingers. So you wanna see it run off the dough hook. If it's sticking to the dough hook, it's gonna be a really heavy, dense masa. If it is too heavy, I would add more liquid like the warm milk until you have that runny consistency. So a stretchy cake batter. So when I touch it, you can see it sticks to me. It's not like a bread dough that comes away from the bowl or away from your hands. So I just happen to have this pan butter. I don't normally use it. You can just grease your pan with whatever you have, a little bit of butter or spray oil, doesn't matter. So when I turn it out, you're going to see that consistency of a sticky cake batter. So I'm going to put it in a large bowl because it is going to proof and rise in this bowl. I'm going to let it sit on the counter covered for 15 minutes, and then I'll come back and I'm just going to turn it over a few times before I put it in for its next rise. So I just grab a bowl of water. It's going to help preventing the masa from sticking to my hands. And I'm going to pinch and pull the dough in towards itself and fold it over. I go around about twice so that I know that I'm grabbing most of the masa. You can see it's starting to stick to me. Just dip my fingers in the water. So I have the proof feature on my oven, and I'm just going to stick it in there. So I'm just going to put my hand in so you guys can see it's not hot in there at all. It's warm. If you don't have the proof feature on your oven, you have to find a draft-free place of your home and cover it with some plastic wrap and a tablecloth and let that rise. Look how beautiful it's risen. Oh, it's going to be stuck to that plastic wrap. Hopefully it comes off easily. Just pull it apart. Don't stress. It's fine. So I'm going to wet my hands and split the dough into 2 portions, and I am going to place them as best as I can into an 8-inch pan. I went and I measured this one out because these have been passed down from my mother and I wouldn't even know where to get them, but they are 8 inches wide and 3 inches deep. So I'm just going to pinch the dough and drop it in as gingerly as I can. I'm no expert. It'll turn out, don't you worry. Oh, look at me handle that dough. It's like slime for adults. Just hide that extra piece down there. So once it rises, all of these tiny little imperfections disappear. So I'm actually going to cover these up and they are going to go in for a second rise. Just going to cover them up with some plastic wrap and stick them back in the proofing of the oven. And we're going to wait until it's doubled in size. So this one has a crease, so I'm just going to try and tuck it under. I don't know why I'm doing it. Once it proofs, you won't see it, but being a perfectionist. So you can just invert a bowl instead of plastic wrap, whatever you have, and then put those in the oven. I would say take a look after about 40 minutes. I came and I looked a little earlier, took the covers off. Look how cute those look. So I'm just going to grab a pair of wet scissors, and I'm going to place a cut. I'm going to say a little prayer. Hope that these turn out. You can cut them however you want. You don't even need to cut them. Just going to brush them with a little bit of milk. Once I've brushed their tops with milk, I am going to make sure that the oven is preheated to 350, and we are going to bake them and check them at around 35 minutes. So I just checked them with a skewer. Skewer came out clean. They look so cute. And after many years of trying and failing, I feel like it can only get better from here. I'm so happy that I was able to get the flavor and the texture that my mother used to make for us when we were growing up. Massa, or Portuguese sweetbread, is really traditional, especially around Easter. And like I said, I'm recording this one specifically for my kids, my grandkids, if I ever have them one day, because as amazing as your grandmother was, my mom, man, she was bad at writing her recipes down. So it's accurate, it's measured, it's weighed, and I hope it turns out for you. And I hope that everyone gets to keep up with this tradition going forward. And maybe when I'm old, my kids can make it for me one day.